Hi and welcome to this web lesson. My name's Phil Williams. I thought we'd have a look at harmonics and some chordal stuff as well, kind of tie the two in together a little bit. Basically want to just open your mind to a few possible areas on the bass you've not looked at. There's some great sounding things within harmonics, and there's some great stuff that you can do with them. Jacko has used them in the past as kind of the main man really for this stuff. There is a DVD out I did of Jacko stuff where I demonstrate some of these techniques. Basically what I want to show you is lots of different ways to use these, different ways to create the harmonics, also some nice exercises at the top, some chordal stuff that might appeal to you. Let's look at the fundamental principle of harmonics anyway. Most people get to playing harmonics through the 12th fret just to start with, because it's a nice point to tune up from, and the tuner recognises these notes a lot clearer often than the open notes, so we often use them to tune, which is right on the 12th fret. So they all occur right on the fret, on the 12th fret. Now this technically is the halfway point between here and here really. So anything, if you look at that note there and you find a point here, say a harmonic, say somewhere in the middle, that harmonic will exist down here somewhere. There it is. So basically we're reproducing both sides of the bass, either side of this point. So if you looked at an oscilloscope, it's a long wavy line in fact. And as you start moving closer towards the top end of the neck end of the bass, the lines start getting more complicated and closer together. Until dogs can hear them somewhere up here. Now that was a really quick overview of where they exist, let's face it. The nice part is just to find stuff that sounds good. Now, most of the time I don't know what these chords are or what these single notes are. I just know I like the sound of them. So these are more natural harmonics. Anything that occurs over frets, any that you can find, more naturally occurring harmonics. The harmonics that guitarists tend to use if they're playing single notes are pinched harmonics, which are created, I tend to create mine by touching the string at a certain point here and plucking it with my finger at the back here. I don't know if you can hear that. So they're kind of more unnatural harmonics. They're on fretted notes where I'm finding the harmonics that occur within that shortened string length using this technique. Those you can experiment with. I'll look mainly at the open ones. Now, there's some lovely stuff you can do with this open harmonics. Chordal stuff, bit of tapping. Okay. There's loads of stuff hidden in there though that you can mess around with. There's just stringing some harmonics and some chordal stuff together just to make a short piece. Firstly, I find the most useful harmonics occur around this section here. So if we count frets 1, 2, 3, 4, over the 5th fret, this little group here. And If you go up a couple of frets from there, you'll find a few more hiding in there. A couple of frets up from there, a few more hiding in there. Now, variations on these, if I'm picking them from frets. There's loads of different sounding chords that you can work out here. And what I discovered was that if you find some interesting sounding ones and stick bass notes, so you're using the 3 harmonics on the top notes here, hiding away, and you stick bass notes on your free bass string on the E string at the bottom. So I'm using a G under this one. Kind of makes a G major chord. Now if I shift the bass note up to a B, keep the 3 top notes the same, we've got a nice variation on the chord. If I shift it up a semitone, keep the 2 top notes the same. And I found another harmonic here. A nice kind of C major harmonic, which is effectively the same as this. So what I'm playing here is a C on my A string, 2 harmonics at the top, and then 1 on the bottom over the 5th fret. So there's loads that occur all over the neck, and it's just for you to experiment with. I'm not going to get into detail of what they are. I'm just going to try and open your mind to maybe messing with these things because they sound great. A bit of chorus pedal on them as well really brings them to life. As you can hear, with me just changing the root notes, it changes the overall flavour of it. There's hours and hours and hours and hours of interesting stuff to be hidden away in there. So, I suggest you experiment with some of these. Try it with different bass notes. If you can find 3 notes and put a bass note somewhere, there you go, that one works. And see how these sound. See if you can put yourself something together in the way of a solo piece on bass. Chordally, I like the sound of ninths on the bass. As we had on a previous lesson, I use these ninths as exercises. Just a nice exercise to open up your hand. I also find ninths just sound good on the bass, basically. Held in. And if you shift a bass note down a semitone, you end up with something sounding quite nice. If you can shift it down again, it's all great for your technique. Discover some of these chords. Major chords, minor chords, minor, major. Just really easy to discover some of these chords. All you're using is a root note. Say for argument's sake we're in G. Yep. And your major, for a G major chord, the interesting note is a B, yeah? That's what makes it sound like a major chord. To make it sound like a minor chord for a G, we flatten that third, and we end up with these intervals. Now, when they're at the bottom of the bass, obviously, they don't sound very good. They're too close together. So what I end up doing is, any given chord, if I can play the root note, for argument's sake, on the G, and I find this B, place it at the top, move it further away from the root. We end up with a nice sounding chord. So we've got the major chord in G. If you shift it up an octave, sounds even better, just with the 2 notes, kind of double stop. And the same principle applies with the minor. Flatten third, shift it up an octave. Then we have the major chord. If you shift it up the neck, we've got the minor chord. And then we've got our ninths. We've got a minor ninth, say we're in E, minor 9. There's a nice chord on the bass. We've just got the E, the 5th, the 9th, and the flat 3rd. could just move this bass note up a semitone, and we got the major. So I'm just incorporating the ninths and the major or minor. Incidentally, these are very nice exercises. Majors, minors. So you can take this exercise, move it down the neck. You can alternate between major and minor. You have to think about these things, but they're kind of a way of arpeggiating some of this stat. Great, and it's very, very good for your right and left hand technique. Also, as I'm saying, if you hold these chords down, if you find this difficult, say we're working at the E point here, for just a minor ninth rather, if you find it hard holding this note down, just concentrate on the 3 top notes and play this as an open note. So that spreads the chord out a little bit. Shifting notes around as I did before, just shift the bass note up a semitone. There's stuff interesting stuff you can find if you hold these chords down at the top here. You can find some interesting stuff at the top here. What I'm doing here is I'm holding these 2 notes down with these fingers on my right hand. I'm also playing this note here with my thumb, so we get this. I've just really experimented and found bits and pieces up here. Also listening to other bass players, Stuart Ham does a lot of this stuff. Some of these ninths are very well used on bass because they do sound sweet. So some of this stuff is kind of bits and pieces of bits that I picked up off his and incorporated my own bits and ideas in there. But as an exercise, it's always very useful stuff to work on because it makes the bass much more interesting. As a solo instrument, basically. So if you're looking at some of these ideas, when you're holding chords down, just find notes that work well, find a couple of notes that work well. With a bit of hammering off of these notes. Bit of reverb, chorus, delay, you're into a whole different world. Also builds a strength in this hand, which is very, very... These chords aren't particularly easy to play and not particularly easy to hold down. You need to really get in there. I'm a great believer in all this stuff really helping your general technique when it comes to playing. To having good, strong, clear bass sound. I think I've covered most of these little bits. I'm sketching over these ideas because they can all be expanded on in a major way. I'm just trying to expand and open your mind a little bit to just the chords and the harmonics that exist on bass guitar. There's all kinds of hidden bits and pieces that I could spend time on. A lot of them I can suggest some very good listening on in terms of albums. If you have a listen to Jacko, Portrait of Tracy, or you have a listen to the DVD that I did for Jam Tracks with the Jacko. That one's actually on there with all the harmonics and a lot. Basically, I cover that tune in depth. The pinched harmonic stuff's on there as well. Stuart Ham's worth a bash for this stuff. He's very, very good with this double hand tapping stuff. And I suggest that you just experiment and find some interesting chord stuff, and also have a look at some of these kind of bass legends, because they were the guys who found it all, including Jacko, who loved that harmonic. So enjoy finding these and see if you can work out your own stuff. and I'll see you in the next lesson.